Tim Petrowich here for Dateline Marion, and it's week 2. Our guest, as usual, is Marion head football coach Kerry Martin. And coming up, a Friday game against a new opponent. Before we do that, let's talk about last Saturday's game against a new opponent. And definitely, despite the outcome, which was a 35-34 Wildcat loss, it was a pretty exciting football game.
It was. There's a lot of big plays and a lot of exciting stuff took place, and I know both teams actually played for a first game of the year pretty well. There were not a lot of turnovers in the ball game. There weren't a lot of penalties in the ball game, and for a first week of the high school football season, I thought both teams played a pretty good first game.
You mentioned something that I kind of wanted to touch on after I went back and looked at the numbers and all the stats in the game. Your team, there was only one turnover in the game, and they committed it. Your team did not have a first game turnover, which is something that I know you strive for, but it's actually kind of rare.
I think it's rare for any football team to play a first game at any level and not have a turnover. So I was real proud of the kids for that, and we had some things we've got to get better at, but at least that's not another thing we're working on. We didn't give the ball up, and I thought, that of course, we had some chances to get more than one turnover. We let some opportunities with balls on the ground and some balls in the air that we could have made plays on. But, it was a hot, muggy, sticky, slippery, crazy night of football. And I thought both teams handled the heat and humidity pretty well, too, considering.
We talked about this after the game, but probably the thing that hurt your team the most was their big plays. They had a 75-yard run for a touchdown, an 88-yard kick return for a touchdown, and then the winning touchdown was a 48-yard pass, but it was tipped. Jaden had the ball played very well,
it
just went through his hands. You talked about the ball being slick, and that was like the third or fourth time on both teams that somebody had missed an opportunity for an interception.
That's right.
But just a bad bounce that went the wrong way.
We came into the game knowing they were a big play team. When we had scouted them earlier in a jamboree a few weeks ago, they were scoring on big plays, and based on the films we had from last year, we noticed that they were a big play team, long runs, big throws. So we felt like if we could limit that, we'd give ourselves a good chance. And they scored most of their touchdowns. I think at one big drive, that most of their touchdowns were big plays, long runs, big catches, and the kickoff return was a big play.
And I think probably if there's one thing that you can definitely point at in some of those big plays and go back and work on, there was a lot of times, even on plays where they didn't score, where your tackling kind of broke down a little bit. You had guys in your grasp and they got away.
It's true. And, we have spent a lot of effort in the off-season, the summer, working on our tackling, and bought some new tackling dummies and sleds, and we kind of, I think, reverted back to some core tackling techniques. But it's funny, we don't have a lot of depth at some positions, and so we've had to limit going live on each other more than we would normally want to. And I think that probably hurt us. But if I had to go back, I probably couldn't change it either. We don't have a lot of depth in certain spots, and we just can't afford to lose anybody. And so we don't do a lot of live tackling on people. We do it on bags and what they call tackling dummies, and we have a couple of sleds we use for tackling, and tackling rings, which is a new thing we bought. But point is, I just think sometimes you got to play some games to hone those things down, and we really went into the game thinking we'd be a better tackling team, and we weren't. So we're back to square one, and this week's practice plan has a lot of tackling on it.
You keep bringing things up that lead into the next questions, and we talked about the depth as well, and you talked about having some players that are going two ways. Are there players that maybe not ready now, but maybe 2-3 weeks down the road, there might be some players that will develop enough that can step into some roles and help spell some kids?
Yeah, we're working on that right now. We have a lot of guys that, we only have a few players that start on both sides of the ball, but there's a lot of guys that play both sides. Once they get a break, they go right back in. And I don't think that Haywood County had a single player playing both ways, and I think maybe late in the game that might have been to their advantage. We've been a platoon team off and on for several years, and boy, you can tell the advantage of that in a hot game like that, or in a ball game that's close. And and I felt like we fell victim to something we had been doing to people for a long time, and that's just wearing people down. I thought we were getting tired. I could see it in the third quarter. I could really see it in the fourth. Maybe they were just a step faster in the fourth quarter than we were. Maybe it's because they were fresher. I don't. We felt like going in that we thought that might be a problem, but like you said, we're developing some young players to play a bigger role and to be able to spell some guys more often. So I'm hoping they'll be starting to get ready in the next few weeks.
You expect players like Jaden Lacey to make plays, and he did. And when he's in, Xavier Cambrick can do some things, and he had some nice hard runs and a couple of big plays. But I kind of wanted to talk about Jake a little bit, because he made some things happen, especially in the first half, that he hasn't had a whole lot of experience at quarterback. But 7 for 10 for 153 yards and 2 touchdowns in the first half is some pretty good numbers.
It's a pretty good first half. Yeah, it's I think he played a really good first starting game of his career. I thought he led the team well. I thought he limited our mistakes. I think he handled the huddle well. I think he got him to the line. I don't think we had but maybe one delay of game penalty.
One on offense and one on special teams.
Right, and one of them came on special teams. Yeah, so I thought overall Jake had a really good ball game, good leadership, made some really good throws, had a couple of decent runs as well. I thought he had a good game. I was real proud of him. I really never doubted that he wouldn't play well for us at quarterback, but that first half was really outstanding.
I have to say that I'm kind of starting to feel a little sorry for Hunter Milligan. Twice in the last game of the regular season last year, he caught long passes and got tackled inside the 5. And last Saturday, he caught one over the middle, got behind the defense, and they hauled him down at the 1 yard line. So 3 times in a row now.
You're right. I never thought about that. You're right. That's true. I just told him he's got to get faster. I said you got to get a step faster somehow, some way, and get in that end zone. But he is a really good football player.
Well, he turned into a nice offensive player too.
He has. He has a shot at the all-time interception record at this school. Had a big night. He's battling a shoulder injury. Hopefully we'll have him back soon. But he's a really good football player, and he's very dedicated to our program, and I love coaching him. And I hated to see him come out as often as he had to come out and nurse that shoulder, but he's fun to watch. He's a player.
And the other one I kind of felt sorry for was Blake Horner. He had the ball on his hands a couple times and just in the wrong position. He does such a good job of getting to the ball when it's in the air, and took a couple of hard shots.
He did. He took a couple of really hard shots, and he's a courageous kid. He's the guy. He's one of those guys we talked about in the off season that didn't start last year, would be a starter this year and have an impact. And he paid his dues as a junior, and now as a senior, he's become a dang good football player. And when I watch him on film, I said this to him yesterday during film session, that I'm just proud of the heart and the work ethic. And when he blocks, it's not always perfect. He's not the biggest tight end, but man, he works at it. He's got a lot of want-to in him, and that means a lot. He is just a blue-collar, good high school football player. I'm proud to have him on our team.
And this is the fun thing about this particular interview, is that we kind of get to pull out some things that people don't see. Another thing that I noticed in the game was he was there for the fumble recovery, but he was in on a lot of plays and always had a nose for the ball. But then when he came to the sideline, he was always asking questions, and that's DJ Trimble. I thought, he had an impact in the game as well.
He did. He's a new player to our program, and he really had a good ball game. I'll point out Tristan Bradford has been out of football for a couple of years, hadn't played since his freshman year, and started on the defensive line and had a really good game. Alex Blaze was out of football for a while, played last year as a backup, and had some tackles for loss, caught a touchdown pass.
First career touchdowns.
So there were contributions made. We talked about the offensive line. Michael Cantrell, first game at center, I thought played very well. Brennan Pecord, first game as a varsity starting at guard. I thought he had a very good game. I mean, there were a number of guys that we needed to step up to give us a chance this season, and those guys I thought really stepped up on on Saturday.
Yeah, it did seem like Coach Skeet wasn't yelling as much at the offensive line.
I noticed
Saturday
that. Yeah, it was quieter over there, but I think he was very proud. He had a sophomore, he had a first-time junior at center, first-time junior guard, only 2 returning starters up front, and I thought they handled themselves really well. We almost had 400 yards in total offense against a pretty good defense. So I was proud of the effort.
And the stats were very even on both sides of the ball throughout the
They
game.
were.
So.
We led in total yards, third down conversion, and we had fewer turnovers. And there's a lot of things you could point to that were real positives.
Before we get into talking a little bit about Dunlap coming up Friday night, I do want to talk about some injuries because there was a couple of significant ones. In particular, Jonathan Clarida on the offensive line.
Yeah.
What's his status?
We don't know yet. As of the taping of this, we don't know. We're going to hope to find out today or tomorrow. Whether it's a short-term thing or a long-term thing, we'll find out. He's really done a nice job for us this camp as just a sophomore, and he's going to have a great career here. Whether we have him the rest of this year or not, he's going to be a good football player for us. Great kid, hard worker. And then Hunter Milligan, maybe week to week, the next couple of weeks, we'll see. I don't want to bring him back too soon. We need him back as soon as we can get him healthy. And those are the 2 big ones right now.
Now, when Jake came out late, was that kind of more precautionary than anything?
It was, yeah, just precautionary.
And I know he took a pretty good shot,
He
but it
did.
seemed like he bounced back pretty good.
He did. He should be okay.
And Blake, same thing?
Same thing with Blake. Yeah.
Very good. Let's talk about Dunlap a little bit. Another new opponent. They play in a very tough conference. We talked about that. Metamora, East Peoria, Pekin, Canton, all those
Washington.
teams. Yeah, they're all in that same conference, and they kind of took it on the chin last week, so I know they're going to be hungry.
They'll be hungry. They're a good football team. They come out of Houston, a good conference. I can watch them on film and tell you they're better than the score of their opening game, which it didn't surprise me. I think they were very well coached. They have a nice offensive scheme. They have a lot of good football players. And again, this will be a tough ball game for us.
They played a very difficult opponent in Galesburg, which you see next week.
Right.
But what did you see anything as far as tendencies, styles, things like that? Because we really don't know a lot about Dunlap.
We don't. The only thing that I knew was from hearing their coach at clinics and talking to coaches who played them. So I kind of had an idea going in of kind of what their style was, and they're a spread offense. They're a 4-3 base defense. Very aggressive. It's really good football players on their team. Quarterback's an outstanding player. So it's going to take another great effort from us.
Is he a thrower or a runner or
Both.
a combination?
He does both. Yeah, he's a dual threat quarterback, and I like him. He's a player.
They lost 48-7, and we don't want to get ahead of ourselves. We know that Galesburg was going to be pretty good. How do you learn from that in a game that lopsided? How do you figure out what to go for?
Well, I read in an interview that Coach Daugherty at Galesburg had said this is not a 48-7 game. And when you look at and he said that, and I thought, well, how can that be? He said it's closer than that. It's not as bad as that score sounds. But you look back at the film and you see a couple of punt blocks, and you see Galesburg, scoring in some unconventional manner. It really isn't as bad as the score sounds. It's just that it kind of got away from them a little bit early. It was some big plays by Galesburg. Now, don't get me wrong, Galesburg is a great football team, and we knew that going in. But I think when you're trying to evaluate Dunlap against them, it came down to some big plays, some plays off special teams that put them in a hole.
They've got a long bus ride, and it's on Friday.
Yeah.
What's the difference? Because you've been in both positions. What do you think is the difference between a long bus ride playing Friday night and a long bus ride maybe playing on a Saturday afternoon or a Saturday night?
We debated this pretty heavily last year before we went to Galesburg about, is it better just to drive up that day and play, or what are the rewards and what are the risks of staying all night, on a hotel with your football team. We chose to go up last year on Friday night to play Galesburg on Saturday. And it was a great experience. Our kids handled it well. We had team meetings and team meals, and I think our kids bonded a little bit during that time, which, again, I know there's a situation that could have not gone well. So I think there's pros and cons of both. Sometimes it's just a gut feel for your team. We chose to go up on a Friday and play on Saturday. They chose just to come up on Friday. I think a lot of it, I think maybe we analyze too much. I think once it starts, it just becomes a football game, to be honest with you.
Sure.
I think those things can have an effect, but maybe he's got a group of kids he thinks can handle that bus ride. I'm sure he'll stop somewhere and do a walkthrough and get them off the bus. And he's a great coach. I'm sure he's got a great plan for that. But yeah, I mean, there's pros and cons. And if I had to do it over again, I would have to rethink whether whether there's something to do again next year when we play Dunlap or go up on Friday or what. But anxious to see if it does have an effect. But it's kind of a gut call by the coach, I guess.
And it's the first of 4 straight home games for your team.
It is.
You always get excited to play at home.
Yeah, I love playing at home. We have a great atmosphere, great fans, great Maniac section. We have it's the place to be on a Friday night with our band and our dance squad and our cheerleaders and our student body section and our regular fans. It's just it's a lot of fun, and our fans are going to get to see us go up against some really good football teams the next few weeks. So come out and take a look and support us, because we're going to need all the help we can get.
And I want to give some credit to the fans as we get ready to close this out.
Yeah.
One of the guys, I spent a lot of time talking with one of the guys on the chain gang for Haywood County, and he said, "Do you guys always travel this well?" He was really impressed, and we had a lot of people who made the 3.5-hour trip to Tennessee.
We did, and we had a good crowd, and that makes a difference. I always say our fans sometimes make home games or away games feel like home games, and I mean that. I mean, when you've got a nice fan base behind your bench, that's a great feeling, and it's a great motivator. And our kids felt the crowd. I think we all felt motivated by the number of people that came out, and a lot of pride in the fact that they came out to support us 3 hours away in the deep south. So we were happy about it. It meant a lot to us.
Friday night kickoff at 7 o'clock, right?
I think it's 7 o'clock kickoff.
All right, that's Kerry Martin. He's the head coach of the Marion Wildcats. For Dateline Marion, I'm Tim Petrowich.